Today is going to be an interesting video. I picked up this Pentax 50mm f2 at a camera show not that long ago, and I wanted to shoot some photos with it, shoot some videos with it, see what it's capable of. But then I also wanted to do a comparison to my more modern 50mm 1.8. It'll be interesting to see if I sort of apples to apples comparison on this, if I sort of dumb this one down to f2 and put the camera in full manual mode, just to see what the difference is between the f2 and full manual mode on this one. Obviously this one being a fully manual lens with an aperture ring and whatnot on it. So when I put this one on the camera body, I'm going to have to put everything obviously into manual mode. The interesting thing when you put this on the camera body is you have to tell the camera body what lens that you put on it, because obviously it doesn't have any pins or anything on it to tell the camera what to do. So if you do have a lens like this and you are putting it on your more modern DSLR or mirrorless camera, then you're going to have to go through your settings and tell the camera what it is that you just attached to it. So that's what I'm going to have to do. It's pretty simple on the Pentax one. As soon as you put the lens on there, it'll on the screen it'll say what did you just attach to me, right? And it'll have a scale of whatever focal length that you have on there. So you just sort of dial in what you've got in there and then go from there. So yeah, so we're going to go out, we're going to shoot some photos, we're going to shoot some videos. I'm going to probably set this one to a few different apertures, maybe like an f2, an f5.6, f11. And then I'll do the same thing with this one. I'll take the same shots and videos with this one, sort of showcasing the same f-stops to kind of compare the two, try to make it as even as possible. It'll be interesting to see if what the depth of field is, what the brightness is, if there's any sort of difference in the focal length in terms of the field of view or whatnot. I'm not anticipating that to be a case, but that would be interesting to see if it was the case. But yeah, let's get these on the camera and go take some shots. All right, I had to throw the ND filter back on. This is at ISO f2.0. As you can see, there is a ton of separation between these two. The depth of field is very shallow on this, and I mean, this is in no way scientific. I just have two lenses that are the same focal length. One is full manual, one is fully automatic. I just want to do a comparison between the two and see what the difference is, in terms of the technology that's changed in the probably 40 years between these lenses being manufactured. So let's find out. I'm just having a little bit of fun. All right, now this is going to be a little bit trickier with such a shallow depth of field. All right, I'm going to focus to the back. Oh, that is pretty buttery. That looks pretty good. All right, and then focus back to the front. Oof. That is like razor thin focal plane. I don't even know if I got it. Oh well, we'll see it in post. Let me zip around here. There we go. Maybe there? Sure. Maybe. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to rack focus this one from the guy in front to the guy in the back. This is f5.6, ISO 400 and 1/60th of a second shutter speed. All right, from front to back. All right, and back to the front. I get it. Oh, I do need a bigger monitor. Okay, so I'm going to rack focus on this guy's nose, and then I'm going to try to rack focus back on this guy's nose at f11, ISO 1600. This is the fully automatic lens. So let's see. I think that looks pretty good. And then I'll focus back. I don't know if I'm quite in focus. There we go. Try that again. Alright. Now I'm going to focus back to the guy in front. Hopefully that's in focus. So I had to throw another ND filter onto this one. This one's actually a different thread size on the vintage lens. It's a 49 millimeter as opposed to a 52 millimeter. So good thing I had two different thread sizes for ND filters. But as you can see, there's a lot of separation between these two. And I'm going to see if I can nail my focus here. And I think that's pretty good. And I'm going to focus to the back there. And right off the bat, there is a ton more adjustment. I mean, I need to turn the manual focus ring on the lens way more on the vintage lens than I did on the modern lens to get it to change. Like that was almost like 3/4 of a full turn, whereas on the modern lens it was more maybe a quarter turn. So I'm going to focus back. That's pretty smooth though. Yeah, a lot more turn with the focus ring. I think if you were shooting at f2.0 with this lens and you wanted to focus on something that was, I mean, these two objects are maybe 6-7 inches apart. I mean, that is a lot of focus throw with this lens. So I don't even know if we even got that focus. There we go. Yeah, interesting. All right, I'm going to bump it up to f5.6. Right now I've got it at ISO 400. I want to see if I can keep the same. If not, this is a variable ND, so I can just adjust it. So to 5.6 we go. Okay, so I didn't need the ND filter on this. This is at ISO 200 at f2.0, or I mean at f5.6. And let's see if I can get that in focus. His nose. All right, I'm going to focus from front to back on this one. Again, this is 5.6 on the on the vintage lens. Yeah, still a lot of focus throw on the lens itself, which is it's a bit of a pain, but it's kind of cool. Whatever. All right, focus back. All right. I think that's in focus. It's hard to tell. All right, that's cool. All right, I'm going to do f11. I might have to bump the ISO up on this one though. All right, so this is f11 on the vintage lens and ISO 800, so I didn't have to bump it up too high. So let's focus from front to back on that. Yeah, that was about a quarter turn. Not too bad. And there's still a decent amount of separation between the two. And focus back. Yeah, I mean that's still good. There's still a bit of separation between the two. F11 maybe a bit much, but I mean even at F11 that's quite a bit of separation. The camera's about maybe a foot away from the subjects right now, so Interesting. I think f5.6 is a nice sweet spot. f2 is just, there's just a lot of focus throw between the front to back. So if you're trying to do any kind of rack focusing at f2 on this lens, you know, you better have a pretty steady hand or like a follow focus ring or something. So. Okay, so I've done a side-by-side comparison video here showcasing the two different lenses. This is the modern 50mm at f2.0 and this is the vintage 50mm at f2.0. Right off the bat you can see that at f2.0 the vintage one has definitely more focus separation or bokeh between the subject and the rear. This one has more, I guess, contrast to it. These are pretty much straight out of camera, a little bit of color grading, but didn't really kind of do anything to either of the objects in the back. So right off the bat, you can see that there definitely is more separation between the two. So I'm going to let that run, and we're going to sort of see the different focus pull between the two. And you'll notice the focus pull for the vintage one is a lot slower, just because the focus throw is much greater on it. So that one's a lot quicker. This one definitely slower, just because there's a lot more throw to the focus ring on it. So, and then I'm going to pause that, and you'll notice that there definitely is a little bit more separation. This is definitely more blurred out on the vintage one between the two. So you can kind of see even around the edges here, there's definitely more throw between the two. I'm going to let that play, and we'll go back to the original mark. And as you can see, it's definitely a lot slower. Definitely more focus throw to get back to the original point on that. So next we're going to move on to the f5.6. I'll just continue that on. And this is the f6. You can also see that there's definitely more separation or bokeh between the two, subject and the rear on the vintage one. Gonna let that run. Focus throw is pretty close to these two. Didn't have to sort of spin the wheel as much on this one as I did on this one, even coming back. Yeah, definitely more separation between the two on the vintage lens, which is kind of the only major thing that I noticed between the two. And at f11, I'm going to pause that there. So even at f11, there's definitely more separation between the two, which was quite interesting because that's a pretty high f-stop on the two. And even at f11, there's still a fair bit of separation between the two objects. I'm just going to focus out. Pretty similar in terms of focus throw between the two, though. And then we're going to focus back. Yeah, so it's quite interesting. I'm going to head on outside and take some photos and videos now, and probably do very similar comparisons to those outside. Okay, I had to move because the city worker wanted to clear off that log that I was filming, so I'm at a different location here, a little bit further down the beach. Same thing, f2.0 modern lens with the ND filter on it. My ISO is 400, so just wanted to kind of see the separation between the log that's about 6 feet away from me and the shoreline. There's another log kind of lying in the water there that you can see that's slightly out of focus. Yeah, I'm going to bump this up to 5.6 and see what that looks like. Okay, so this is at f5.6 with the modern lens. As you can see, there's a lot less separation between the log and the shoreline. Still pretty good though. And this is at f11 with the modern lens. As you can see, there's a lot less separation between the log and the shoreline. This is at ISO 800. I'm going to just bump it up to ISO 16 and see if I can brighten it up a little bit. That's okay. It's still a little blown out, but I'm going to bump it back down to 800. That's a little bit better to work with. Yeah, so a lot less separation at f11. Alright, I'm going to throw on the vintage lens and see what the difference is. Okay, so that's at f2.0, ISO 200, variable ND filter on the vintage lens. That looks really good. Some good separation between the foreground log and the shoreline there. Okay, so that's at ISO 400 with an ND filter variable. Just going to tweak it a little bit. I don't know if that makes much of a difference. Bump it up to ISO 8 and tweak it. That's a little bit better. So that's ISO 800 f5.6 vintage lens with an ND filter on it. That looks pretty good. I like that. Can work with those highlights a little bit. So this is at f11 with the vintage lens set to ISO 800. Seems to be less separation between the foreground log and the shoreline. But I don't know. We'll do a side-by-side comparison and see what that looks like. Okay, I've got a side-by-side video here from the footage that I shot down at the beach of the log. And on the left is the vintage 50mm, and on the right is the modern 50mm. And right off the bat at f2, when you're doing a side-by-side, you can see that the modern one has a lot more contrast and a lot more clarity. And there is more separation between the log and the shore there, which is quite interesting. And I'm just going to let this play here, and we can kind of see. They both had ND filters on them, so settings are pretty much the same, but definitely the image for the vintage one is a lot flatter. So that was quite interesting to kind of see after the fact. And then we're going to bump it up to 5.6, and you can see there's a lot more clarity in the modern lens. So definitely not as washed out, and yeah, just a lot more contrast, more clarity in the modern lens. That's kind of the big difference between the two that I noticed. And then at f11, very similar, a little bit more contrast in the modern lens, but in terms of the overall look, very similar. So I'd say at the more open apertures made the biggest difference between these two lenses for sure. So right off the bat, I can tell that there's a huge difference in the color of these, and this is straight out of the camera. I did the same Adobe preset on both of these, but the vintage one definitely has a warmer look to it versus the modern one. That was the biggest thing that I noticed between these two, aside from the depth of field and whatnot. But it was the color itself, and it was the same white balance in the camera. I didn't change any of that, and all I did is just put the same preset on both images, and it was very interesting to see the difference between these the two. I still think the modern lens has a little bit more contrast and is a little bit more detailed, but other than that, that was my unscientific comparison between a vintage 50mm lens and a modern 50mm lens from Pentax. So, hey, if you have the opportunity to pick up some old lenses just to kind of see or get a different look out of your camera, then go for it. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video.